We are live from Studio B, as usual, here at the Beach Street Yacht Club in San Francisco's beautiful Marina District. And I mean today, Julia, it is beautiful.
Yes, it looks like it's almost summer, and it is.
It is almost summer, and we have nice greetings from Clayton Embley, who is in the District of Columbia. I wonder if he's in the President's National Security Council meeting in the Situation Room there.
I'm sure he is.
Tier DeYoung, hi from SoCal. Mark Holland, sail it like you stole it. Never use the word whilst, ever. Hola to Rick Bannerow from a still wet and dreary Connecticut, and the beat goes on. Alan Long and many others. I'm your host, Tom Eamon, along with co-host Julia Vadekint. Thank you for joining us in this show number 843. What's on the ticket today? We're going to start with a happy Tuesday to all of you and a happy TOR return to Julia's favorite South American port. Julia, any idea what that's all about?
Well, it's either in Argentina or Brazil.
Correct. We'll get to that in a minute. You see if you can figure that out. In the meantime, Coaching Corner, John Emmett. We focus on the elite, he says, but it's the grassroots that matters most in his presentation today. Fog City, everyone talks about the weather, Julia, but no one does anything about it. And it is a glorious day here in San Francisco, but still only about 55 or maybe 62 degrees, maybe if we're lucky.
That's true.
But we don't do anything about the weather. Bravo Zulu to the Star Europeans and to the New York Yacht Club, who just wrapped up terrific regattas. The Star Europeans in Italy with 70 boats. New York Yacht Club with over 1,000 sailors in their 171st annual regatta. Big, successful traditions, both. More Bravo Zulu. Huge ILCA Euro Masters are underway at Hayling Island in Great Britain. And a monster, and I mean monster, Finn World's Masters underway in Medemblik in the Netherlands. And I'm also going to say something nice about Magnus the Magnificent. Not that I don't often, but he has the best Rule 69 blog post in months, maybe ever, maybe all time. Magnus Wheatley, our super fuzzy feature, the Magic Cup. That's what we're going to talk about today. We have a modest proposal for a new and proper America's Cup-style match racing event for Newport, Rhode Island, what I'd like to call the Wimbledon of our sport, or the Masters, as in golf, down in Augusta, Georgia, the Masters of our sport. It's time that we get back to the future. That will be our feature today. And then the last leg will celebrate the return of the TP52 Worlds, headed to Cascais in Portugal. In a couple weeks' time, I have a nice video from them. And quite a bit more this day in history, Whiskey Tango, Foxtrot, and more for today's show number 843, Tuesday, the 17th of June, 2025. Steve Atkins says, indeed, they are fogged in on the Connecticut shore. That's Commodore Steve Atkins, past Commodore of the Madison Beach Club. Jody Shields, good morning from a dark Wangi, where it's just after what? 6 in the morning. He's up and at 'em as usual, just north of Sydney in Australia. Ed Worley up here in NorCal near us. Clark Chapin, normally anyway. Clark Chapin, summer like Plymouth, Michigan.
Wow.
The great state of Michigan. Clark enjoying it's June. It's almost June 21st. It's almost the longest day of the year, Julia.
I know.
Pedro Foiling Sailor, I've still got to work on some more on his Pedro's personal perspective. He's listening in on the high seas on his way to Athens. He will stay awake. Well, what time is it there? It's only, 22:04, isn't it? Or is it 23:04 there in Europe? Greetings from the Gold Coast. Thanks to Greg Phillips for sending us some more funnies. Alan Long, greetings from a very hot, muggy Lago Vista, Texas. And on and on and on. We love to have the folks in the chat. And welcome to all of you. And to those of you who are not in the chat, just joining in and listening as a bit of a lurker, as they say. Right? Welcome.
We call you lurkers.
Lurkers. We love lurkers. Welcome to the show and our proposal for a new America's Cup style event. It's about time. Back to the future. We'll get to that in a minute. But Julia, nobody does anything about the weather. They talk about it, and we've had the coldest, foggiest spring, maybe not so foggy, actually, but the coldest spring in memory. And for 2 weeks they say it's not even been close to 70 degrees here, even though it's approaching the first day of official day of summer. You can see there's 62 in San Francisco. A stubborn marine layer has gripped the Bay Area. But you know what? It's not that unusual. Why do
No.
people say, oh, we never have weather like this?
Oh, we do.
When in fact, over the big picture, long term,
And it's if you need a little warm weather, you just go 20 miles inland and it's 90.
or up to your
Yeah.
batch, as
Right.
the Kiwis would call it, up in
Calistoga.
Calistoga. Christopher Gillingman from Leamington with his wife Jane. And it must be summer even in SFO if Julia is saying scarf.
I know. I had to argue about that today.
I told you, Julia, you would be criticized.
Oh, well, I told you this is not scarf weather.
Okay, well, it is nicer weather here, but it's maybe one day of 65-degree weather. Beautiful weather always in Long Beach, which should be, hopefully will still be the 2028 Olympic venue. The Croutonic LA politicians, as you know, are trying to take it up to LA, specifically to San Pedro, the port of LA. There's conflicting news from various sources about whether that's going to happen. That is the move from Long Beach, because sailing, along with another dozen sports, are confirmed and have long since been confirmed to be held in Long Beach. And I think the cost of moving those sports now to LA 28 would be significant, if not huge. I really doubt they're going to move anything. I certainly hope they don't. The bigger question is whether LA, which is by their own admission, the city of LA, the county of LA, $1 billion in debt, and they have promised $300 million to the LA 28 organizing committee. No one's quite sure how they're going to fulfill that, if at all. We shall see what happens, and we'll keep you posted. In the meantime, if you haven't already written to David Graham, please do. David Graham at sailing.org is the World Sailing CEO, and tell him that San Pedro, or SP or P, they don't even call it S, they just call it Pedro up down there in LA. Pedro is Croutonic. And everybody that's on here, again, they did a site long ago. They did a site inspection of these two and perhaps other venues. World sailing representatives, U.S. sailing representatives, of former Olympic sailors, current Olympic sailors, and more. LA 28, and they all agree that the best venue by far is Long Beach. And people are trying, U.S. sailing. Charlie says this, he was on the show, Charlie Enright, the new executive director / CEO. He says, I don't have a dog in this fight. Would you just please tell me where it's going to be? Mm-hmm. Because most of the sailors are training already and have been for some time in Long Beach. The venue for 1984, the venue for 1932 sailing Olympics. Okay, enough of all that. What are we celebrating, Julia, today? There's a clue.
The ocean race?
There's Thierry de Jong down in SoCal saying Long Beach is now 80 degrees and an 8-mile-an-hour south-southwest sea breeze.
Wow.
How nice.
Perfect.
Ed Worley says LA lost. So he spent over $20 million in the last couple of weeks on the unrest, probably more than that. Go, Tom, go, Joe Cool is saying that. But back to what are we celebrating today? You see the little clue in the upper right corner, Julia.
Yeah, the ocean race.
The ocean race. And they announced yesterday a return for the 2027 event to this port, one of your favorites. There's another clue. Santa Catarina, Itajaí.
Oh, and Itajaí.
In Brazil.
Oh, yes.
The ocean race will return to Itajaí, Brazil during the 2027 and 2031 around the world races, they announced yesterday. I thought that would make you happy, Julia.
It does.
Which is why I stuck this one in here
Yes. Oh,
for
that's
you.
Good. No, that's a great place.
I know. It's one of your favorite ports in the world, you and your late husband. The ocean race confirms Itajaí in Santa Catarina state, the state of, in Brazil, once again will host the world's most iconic, well, I guess at least they think they're, around the world yacht race in April 20, at least they call it a yacht race, 2027, and again 4 years later in 2031, a two-edition hosting partnership known for its enthusiastic fans who welcome the sailors and teams after weeks of racing through the challenging conditions of the Southern Ocean. Itajaí is always a welcome stop on the race calendar, and indeed it is. I've talked to any number of sailors who just say it's been a fabulous stop in past events. This will mark the 5th time the race has been in Itajaí and the 11th visit to Brazilian shores. And here, Commodores, ladies and gentlemen, is a nice, quick video.
Oh, good.
Nice video.
Yes.
Nice venue
Yes.
in Brazil. Itajaí. Thank you, Rick Vanero. I try to pronounce, the only words I struggle with are French. I can handle Portuguese and Spanish and German for the most part. And the ocean race will return there in 2027. You also maybe saw in that video that they have announced the stop in Auckland before that. Now, the question is, are they not going to stop in Ted Ryman's, our super Fozy from Cape Town? Are they not going to stop in Cape Town? I rather think they are going to stop there. They just haven't done that deal yet. Where will they go from Itajaí? Will they go to Fritz Mueller's Miami? Will they go to Newport, Rhode Island? Remains to be seen. Obviously, they have some work to do on venues for the 2027 event. 12-meter World Match Racing Championships. What's that comment about, J. Frederick Bland? Well, stand with us. Stick with us. Stand by, because we're going to get to that a bit later in the show. Our proposal for a new event in Newport, Rhode Island, a la Wimbledon or a la the Augusta Golf Championship, known as the Masters. They always stop in Cape Town, Ted Ryman is saying. Yeah, they still need some more stops. Nice video. Yeah. Julia, what else are we celebrating today? Courtesy of People magazine.
Is it the wedding?
No,
just his in just becoming king.
No. It's that time of year. King Charles and Queen Camilla lead the charge with historic carriage ride at the
Royal Ascot.
The Royal Ascot. Okay. The King, 76, and the Queen, 77, were back in a carriage at the annual horse race meeting, the 200th year that the royal procession has taken place. The 200th year. I thought that was worth celebrating at the top of the show. They both look a little surprised by the This is today. Outcome of one of the races today. They've got a horse in that race. They got a horse in that race.
Yes.
His hat is too small, Ryman says. I don't know what that means. King Charles and Queen Camilla opened. They attended day one today of the Royal Ascot at the Ascot Racecourse on June 17th. And, of course, it's the high season now in the UK. What else, Julia, goes on in the UK for their big summer high-end social events? Like the Chelsea Flower Show.
Okay.
Like Cows Week.
Cows Week.
And we got to have, a little sailing connection here. Speaking of sailing connections, do you know who that is?
Yes, Princess Anne.
The Princess Royal. She was also there, arriving at Ascot, at the Royal Ascot today. We thought we should mention that because it's a big deal.
Yes.
And she's a sailor.
She is.
She's also an equestrian.
Yes, she is.
So that's what's happening today. We're also celebrating, as always, our Fozy. We so appreciate those of you who give us $1 or $2 or $5 or more a month to keep us in this fine studio, to keep our streaming fees paid, to keep my landlord happy, fairly happy. We so do appreciate it.
Yes.
And we've got, thanks to some of you who do give us a few bucks, we've got the cleavage cam working, Julia.
Oh, boy.
Come on, show us a little cleavage. You said you didn't wear your scarf today, so I thought we'd get to the cleavage cam. We do appreciate, though, very much everyone's support from around the world. There's just a few of the flags representative of the locales where the Fozy are watching today's show. Friends of Sailing Illustrated, a.k.a. Fozy, including Larry Kennedy, who is in the FIDI, the financial district of New York City.
Doing something important,
I
trust.
He's working, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Thanks to all of you. If you want to help support us, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. or other, you can send us a check, or you can send Julia some booze for her coffee, like Clayton Embley does. Behind me, you'll see a bottle of his bourbon cream, soft focus, that we have a little bouquet. No, it's the camera. The camera with the soft focus. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. This is our show number 843 for Tuesday, the 17th of June, 2025. And as usual, we start, not always, but we normally start with John Emmett's Coaching Corner. And we do again today, Coaching Corner with our super Fozy John Emmett, who is talking about the grassroots, not just elite sailing, which we all tend to talk about here on this show, and to even do ourselves to some degree, but it's the grassroots that count.
Hi, Tom, Julia, and all the Fozy. Well, another really enjoyable show recently, and it got me very focused on what we're focusing on. So if you haven't done already, please like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, because if we grow our audience, hopefully we can have more positive impact on sailing. But where do we spend our focus? Well, I think we spend a lot of our time talking about the really elite end of the sport. Certainly we spend a lot of our time watching the elite end of the sport, and personally I spend a lot of my time coaching the elite end of sport. But is that what the sport is all about? And I would suggest no, it's about the grassroots. And in fact, you can't see it off camera here, but yeah, the grassroots of sailing is the most important thing, because in 5, 10, 20 years time, that's where the elite sailors will come from. But that's also the people who are going to pay the subscriptions to the clubs, to the classes, to the member national authorities. And that's why it's so important we really look after our grassroots sailors. So we have sailing clubs with, metaphorically and literally, doors thrown wide open, new members welcome. Personally, I've been doing a few new member introductions. I remember when I first joined Castle Cove, you almost had to sort of pass an interview or whatever to get on. Now, I think it's much more important to make things as welcoming as possible. But I think it's the same for a lot of clubs, a lot of classes, where you spend 90% of your time looking after 10% of the class. 90% of your time looking after 10% of your members, that aspirational group. And it's probably the older members, or just the typical club sailors, who we're most likely to lose from the sport, because the elite sailors by definition are going to want to carry on because they have targets, whether it be youth, Olympic, professional sailor. And Jodie Shields makes a very good point. I mean, going from any of those transitions is incredibly hard. Just from junior to youth sailing is a big jump, but from youth to Olympic sailing is huge. And actually, just because you've had Olympic success, it's not easy to crack that professional sailing market, something I see very much with Lily at the moment. But this idea of grassroots and volunteering, I would encourage anyone who's sat now in front of a phone, a tablet, a laptop, their TV, watching Sailing Illustrated, feeling a bit frustrated, just go and volunteer and use that energy to do something positive for the sport. I mean, we can never rewind time, not even a single second, but we can do our best for the future. And clubs and classes are just crying out for volunteers. So what they probably don't need is people with new opinions and ways of doing things. They need people who will graft and go and do the work. So think, what skill sets do you have, and what can you bring to your clubs and classes? And that way, if you have a particular favourite class or whatever, or just you're very fond of your local sailing club, you can put your time directly into that, and then you'll see the results. So yeah, actions speak louder than words, and let's all do our very best just to help promote the sport and get as many bums on seats as possible. So once again, keep having fun, sail safe, sail fast, and see you all very soon.
John Emmett, nice report. Now, Julia, I have a question.
Yes.
What is this device right here?
I don't know.
Well, it's a planter, right? It's
Yeah.
something to hold a plant. We got to take a collection up and send some money to John.
So
I
he
guess
has a
that's at the
plant.
family farm. Maybe he's at Castle Cove. You got to have a plant in that, Julia.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
That's Crotonic, John. He's talking about the grassroots and grassroots sailing. We need a big green plant up there, right?
I should think so.
Huh?
Yes.
Great report, nonetheless, by John Emmett. Thank you, John. John Emmett from
I am reminded of a truth which says most people volunteer because they're asked.
No one would better know than you, having headed up the national. What was it called?
National Center for Voluntary Action.
National Center for Voluntary Action in this country. You were one of the senior executives there.
Executive Vice President, yes.
And people need to be asked, and then they need to be thanked.
Yes.
Both, right?
Indeed.
John Emmett, the Coaching Corner here on Sailing Illustrated, a regular feature. Get to the front of the fleet with John Emmett. And if he's available to coach, if you need a coach. And meanwhile, he's out on the water winning. And if you see his face, did you see what his face looked like?
I know. He's been out a lot.
He's been out in the sun. He's not just overexposed on his camera.
Yeah.
Great report. Thanks, John. Alan Long is saying. And John Emmett is, in fact, at Hayling Island, where he is racing in the the European ILCA Masters.
And I'm sure he's winning.
You should think. We'll see in a moment. We'll have that report in a moment. At the end of John's report, we also like to remind everybody. And
right.
I think the Australians have this in hand, but we got to keep the pressure on, not the Australians, but on the Brisbane organizers for 2032. We want to get parasailing back in the Olympics, the Paralympics, in 2032 as a demonstration event.
Yes.
And we're working on that. The Aussies are working on it. And if you have any ideas or any influence on the organizers, because this is the organizers in Brisbane that are going to make this decision. They can decide what para events to add. And that's what we need, is a little bit of pressure. Keeping that up.
Yes.
Bravo Zulu. We like to start the show not only with John's report, but with a few Bravo Zulus in praise of potential. Well done. Praise of performance and praise of potential. We were telling you in Friday's show about the Star Europeans in Viareggio in Italia. They had fully 70 teams from 23 nations. And we also said that, why do we fight the popularity of certain classes like the Star, like the Finn? We don't fight the Laser. The most popular Olympic class by far is a 50-year-old boat.
Yes.
It's the Laser. And why don't we just follow the lead of the Laser and the lead of the sailors, and they go to the classes that are good and are popular, including the Star,
Absolutely.
Put them back in the Olympics.
Yes.
And it was a fantastic event. We told you on Friday, in fact, that they had won. Nando and Enrico Chieffi had won with one race to spare. When I was preparing Friday's show, they hadn't raced Friday yet. And then they did, and then they did so well. I think they won that race, but certainly did not have to race in the final race on Saturday, and they did not. They did not. They sat it out, which is, a lot of people think that's more fair. If you've clinched, you don't go out there and interfere with other people.
And let somebody else take it.
But don't pack your boat up and leave. Stay there and go to the prize giving, not only to celebrate yourself and your win, but to celebrate everyone else, which is a message I remember from Buddy Malgus and Ted Turner and others. The final race on Saturday was dominated from the start by your favorite sailor, Julia.
Yes.
By Paolo Chiardini, and George Iverson, who rounded the top mark with a comfortable lead and steadily extended their margin over the hour-long... Oh, look at that, a long race course. Wow. Holding second throughout the race was Renato Conde from Portugal and Tavi Tavater from Estonia. Newcomers. You get newcomers to the class, and they can perform and compete, who have shown impressive skill and consistency all week. Finishing third was Giovanni Capo from Italia and German crew, the veteran Frijolf Clean, while Diego Negri and Sergio Lambertenghi closed out the race in fourth, and after a thrilling duel to the line, edging out Tansi Stepanovic, whom we talked about multiple times in the last month, and Tudor Billich by just 1 second, Julia.
Oh, my goodness.
Huh?
I missed.
Fantastic stuff. Great racing, great class. Why do we muck around with this formula? Great winners. Bravo Zulu to them all, and the rest of the top 10, including, of course, Enrico and Nando, who won, and then Tansi and Tudor, who were second, and on down through fourth. Kayard, fifth. Diego Negri and Sergio Lambertenghi. Jack Jennings, who's my age, maybe even older. I sailed against Jack as a kid in Mallory or Sears or both. I can't remember now. And Jack sailing with Pedro Truchet. Bravo, representing Coconut Grove Sailing Club in Miami, but bravo Zulu to all of the top 10 and indeed to all 70 competitors.
Yes, indeed. That's a great class.
At that fabulous event, Julia.
Yes.
Over the weekend, we celebrated, in fact, on Friday, the New York Yacht Club's 171st annual regatta. And this boat, which is, I believe, is the Rear Commodore's boat, was sailed by the Coast Guard Academy cadets. They had a terrible race in the Round the Island race on Friday, which was a separate standalone race. They came back. These are mostly dinghy sailors, mostly kids, Julia, who are on the Coast Guard's collegiate sailing team. Mm-hmm. They've done not that much offshore racing, but they figured it out after finishing last on Friday in the Round the Island race to come back and win their division.
Good for them.
On this boat, which I believe is owned by Rear Commodore Comiskey there on the right. Bravo Zulu to them. Sometimes a regatta win is just that. Sometimes it can mean a little bit more. For those looking for a splash of positivity that extends well beyond the race courses at the New York Yacht Club's 171st annual. This is Stuart Struley's writing. He's like Magnus the Magnificent. He writes great prose. He's the PR guy for the club.
Yeah.
For the positivity that extends well beyond the race courses at the New York Yacht Club's 171st, consider the performance of Elan, I guess. How would you say that in French? Nice Elan, right? Elan?
I would say Elan, but it's
Elan.
probably Elan.
Well, I think it's Elan. There should be an accent over that A, like the French word, right? What do I know? A Swan 53 entered in the Navigator Course C by the U.S. Coast Guard Academy in New London, Connecticut, and sailed by some of the young men and women above with Rear Commodore Peter J. Comiskey that will soon be tasked, these young men and women will be, with defending our shores.
They actually may get an opportunity to do that.
No doubt. So bravo Zulu to them. This was a fabulous regatta by all accounts. They had some breeze on Saturday, and it turned out to be a little nicer on Sunday. The biggest class, no surprise, was the 23 boat, the IC 37 class, which is a 37-footer. Perennial class leader Hannah Sweat and her team MO started off with a pair of seconds to take an early lead. However, collision in race 3 nearly took them out of the running when they were forced to withdraw from that race, thanks to quick work of the New York Yacht Club's IC-37 charter boat program. Remember, some of these are privately owned, some are owned by the club, but they keep the boats all in good shape. And a successful redress hearing. Team MO started today, that was Sunday, back in their boat with a 9-point lead over second place. A third and fourth all but locked up the overall win. A subpar last race served only to tighten up the final standings. MO took first by 6 points over Lance Frazier's Defiant, with Steve Liebel's New Wave in third, only a point back.
Yeah, really tight.
Here's another interesting development, and this is Ryan McKillen. And you know who Ryan McKillen is, Julia?
I do not.
Remember the name? He is the former Uber, one of the founders, or co-founders, early hires of Uber, who now is a co-owner, along with his wife and Mike Buckley and a few others, of the U.S. Sail GP team. And they campaign an M32, the catamaran, called Surge. And you know where most of his boats have been named Surge. Do you know why?
No.
Because of Uber's surge pricing. He came up with that idea when he was working here in San Francisco at Uber, or so one reads. McKillen's Surge is 4 for 4. Hannah Lee Knoll wrote this prose. The M32 team remains undefeated in 2025 after winning the M32 fleet at New York Yacht Club's 171st, the opening event of the M32 Newport One Design Series. The win came after 9 short course races and a spectacular around the island distance race that counted double. And they sliced through that 150. They started last and sliced through that 150 boat fleet.
Wow.
There's some spectacular pictures as well. I particularly like the next one after this. The regatta brought the M32 class deeper into the club sailing community. Nearly 1,000 sailors from dozens of classes gathered nightly at New York Yacht Club's Harbor Court. And it's just like Cows Week. It's just like the ROR, or the Royal Thames 250th Regatta that went on this past weekend in Cows. Great stuff for our sport. Quote, it was amazing to finally be part of the New York Yacht Club annual regatta and mix with our friends from all the other classes, said McKillen. Major thanks to the New York Yacht Club for the hospitality. Look at this shot. That's after the start, I believe, of the Round the Island race. Headed out, as we showed you the other day on that map, that is headed south out the East Passage of Narragansett Bay. That is Connecticut Island there on the right at the top of the screen. And that's a little Clingstone, that little tiny island, that house out there on the end, which, by the way, Hannah Sweat's family used to own. I don't know if they still do. You race out around Beavertail, and then you go up the back side of the island. You get out around Beavertail, and you go up the back side of the island underneath the Jamestown Bridge and back around and come back here ultimately to the finish area right here off, between Fort Adams and Jamestown, which is the town over here on Connecticut Island. Great stuff. Great race. One of the best races anywhere ever. Coastal Racing suits the M32s, and Friday's Around the Island race proved it. It showcased the M32 fleet at full throttle. They started last, but it wasn't long before the fleet catapulted beyond nearly 150 boats, including the 12 meters, the Cape 31s, the IC 37s, a Boateen 44, you name it. We had a favored pin-end start and did what we wanted off the line, said McKillen. 4 different boats led the first beat, so it was super tight. We rounded Beavertail, which is in the upper left corner of that photo, popped the Jenniker, and never looked back.
Amazing.
There's the crew. Now, do you recognize some of those crew, Julia?
Yes, the first one.
The first one right in the middle, that is Taylor.
Oh, that's
Taylor Canfield.
Yeah.
It feels pretty good. They never come easy. This one was no different, said McKillen, after rising to the top of the 9-boat M32 fleet with tactician, not driver, tactician Taylor Canfield, Luke Payne, Sam Loughborough, and Mac Agnesi on board. Serge battled with Bobby Julian's dingbat to take the overall event win. The team was powered by their double points victory in Friday's Round the Island race. Now, just one other note here for the record. You see this wharf. This is a new wharf that I saw in the pictures, and I had to ping CTB this morning, Claire the Brilliant, the Vice Commodore of New York Yacht Club, and our Super Fozy, Claire Harrington, and I asked her, what is this? This is new to me. I haven't been to Newport in a few years, but this is what we used to think of as Perry's Wharf. It's a new development. That is 41 North, I think, which is one of the first big and beautiful condo developments on the harbor. This is just off here to the left is America's Cup Avenue and up to the middle part of Newport. So this is Lower Thames Street right along here. And down around the corner, you go to New York Yacht Club and so on. So this is Perry's Wharf. I'd never heard of it, or I'd heard of it, and probably it's still called Perry's Wharf. And there's some racing. This restaurant over here in the back now is one of the restaurants on the street is now called the Race Club. It's another one of these kind of ersatz yacht clubs, like the Beach Street Yacht Club, Julia.
Yes. Oh, that's famous.
Where the M32 sailors hang out.
Yep.
Leonard was there. Leo sailed on Youngblood, and they were third, his dad, Rob Fry, is saying. So that's good. Nice stuff.
He's had some good sales.
He has. He's doing well. Super Fozy as well. He's been on this show a handful of times. One of our favorite sailors in the world, Leonard Takahashi from Auckland, New Zealand, and 3-time runner-up in the Gulf Cup. He never did win it, I don't remember.
Oh, and he's aged out now.
And he's long since aged out. Yeah. Okay, so another Bravo Zulu here, Julia, to the day one of the ILCA Masters Europeans at Hailing Island. That's why John's at Hailing Island. He got there, on Friday, I guess he was headed there, driving there. They've got a huge turnout for this event as well. 128 sailors from 19 countries. Bravo freaking Zulu for another traditional class that's getting a huge turnout. And look who is in the lead. Tied at the top
Yay.
with Maura Dewey from Canada, sailing in the ILCA 6. There are two divisions, the ILCA 6s and the ILCA 7s. And John has scores, as you can see there, of 4-1-2 for a net. Oops, I got the wrong. Let's go back to the square. I rather like the square than that drawing with the pencil in the telestrate. He's got a 4-1-2-7, and Maura Dewey's got a 1-2-4-7 as well, or 1-2-4 rather. So John, they've got the same scores, but apparently John gets the tie break for having finished higher in race 3. Well, for what is not worth. That and 385 doesn't buy you a Starbucks these days, Julia.
No.
But nice stuff. No surprise. John's won, he's the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time, and I think of ILCA Masters sailors.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say. Wouldn't you agree?
As far as I know, it is.
He is. Okay, so Bravo Zulu to all these events. There's cool events going on all around the world, and it looks like there's going to be a great turnout for the Airlie Beach race up in Australia. Up on the northeast corner of Australia in a month's time. There's so many cool things going on, Julia, in traditional classes, traditional events, traditional yacht racing.
And nobody's having any fun.
Nobody's having any fun. Yeah, they're all having fun.
Yes.
And, we've got next week at Garda, they've got a big turnout for what is not a traditional, 10 years now, of foiling, for foiling week. And we'll see how that goes. But they got a good turnout of the Moss. And read Magnus the Magnificent today. If you don't have a subscription to his Rule 69 blog, I commend it to you.
Yes.
Because today, Julia.
Yes.
He had one of the best. Did you read it? Did you have time to read it this morning?
I looked for it, but he didn't send it to me, so I...
Oh, he must have. It's just in there with all those other politicians that are trying to get money from you.
It comes to a different website.
To a different email address.
Yeah.
Well, it's because you got so much stuff coming in. But in any event, Magnus was as good or better as he's ever been. He did kind of a quick wraparound of what's going on in the sailing world as well, particularly focusing on the UK, but he also touched on the New York 171st. And I commend his blog. It's on Substack, the Rule 69 blog. It's subscription based. It's not a princely sum. I think it's $75 a year. And he comes out virtually every day. Today's was one of the best ever. Magnus, thank you very much.
I'm a great fan of his prose.
I know you are. But, we also have to remember who he works for part-time.
Yes.
So you have to take that with a grain of salt.
Yes.
He works for certain people.
Yes, he does.
We are independent. This is viewer-supported media, so help us out here. We're 40 minutes into this show, and we do this every Tuesday and Friday at 1300 Pacific, California time. 52 weeks a year we do this. So we hope you join us, we hope you support us, and we hope you also support Magnus the Magnificent. Speaking of cool events, and they also richly deserve a Bravo Zulu, the Finn World Masters.
Oh.
The Finn class got kicked out of the Olympics for stupid political reasons. And, we're going to modernize. We're going to modernize the Olympics, and we're going to do other classes that will be more television friendly. There is nothing more television friendly than the Star class or the Finn class, and seeing some very strong, physically fit sailors gutting it out around the racetrack from people around the world. Then the Star and the Finn class, we should never kick them out. They have fully 307 entries from 27 countries up in Medemblik at their Masters, this year's 2025 Masters Championship. Medemblik up at the top of the IJsselmeer in the Netherlands. I've judged there and sailed there any number of times. We actually perfected umpiring there, to be fair, at what was then called the Spa Regatta. And it's now just, I think, the Holland Regatta, which is an Olympic classes, multi-class event. Annual event up there. And this year, they're also hosting the Finn Worlds. And here's the video from yesterday, day one. This is the kind of racing that most people in the world relate to, whether they're sailors or not. They see it at their clubs. They do it at their clubs. They see it on the bays and the lakes and the rivers around the world. Fabulous stuff. When you get 300 plus boats turning out for a Masters event in a venerable class like the Finn,
Yes.
it's just great stuff. Great for our sport.
I'm curious, and I should know the answer to this, but are the rest of the classes at the Finns equally popular?
What rest of what classes?
I mean, the non-masters.
Well, yeah, the Finn Worlds also gets a huge turnout. And when they do their regular worlds, they get great turns out. See that, how I did that, turns out? Not turnouts?
Yes.
You know, for a simple country boy from a
Not bad.
public college, I
Not
thought
bad.
you'd appreciate that. I know you'd say turns out at Stanford. Great stuff, great footage. Robert Deves, the class publicist, who also does the 5.5 class, does I think the OK Dinghy class and a couple others. There was a video out today, but I didn't have it in time to put in the show. Bravo, Zulu.
Absolutely.
Larry Kennedy says, I resemble a Finn sailor, my kind of guys. Yeah, big, strong men and women sailing in that class, and there are women sailing in it too.
Mm-hmm.
Bravo, Zulu. Now, who's leading? Well, no real surprise. Peter-Jan Postma from the Netherlands is among the leader. He is the leader right at the top after 2 days of racing. He's leading the fleet with of the 307 boats from 27 countries, as we said, after everyone sailed 2 more races today at the 2025 Finn World Masters in Medemblik. France's Laurent Hay, who's another perennial champion in the Finn class, is second, with Germany's Fabian Lemmel in third. Great stuff.
Oh, yes.
Bravo, Zulu. The huge fleet is split into 4 randomly allocated groups each day with 2 starts on 2 course areas, with Finns filling up the IJsselmeer off Medemblik from horizon to horizon.
Mm-hmm.
2 races with 8 starts were again sailed today in an offshore shifty breeze. Though more stable than Monday, the conditions on day 2 were sublime, with a warm 8 to 10 knots in the first race with wall-to-wall sunshine. Unusual up there, but this is the best time of the year to be up there, having, I can say from a great deal of experience out on the water off Medemblik.
Yeah.
Increasing to 12 to 15 in the second with more cloud cover. Now get this, gentlemen. 44th is a gentleman whom I don't know named Brendan Hogg.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I pick him out? He's from New Zealand, so half a world away. He's in 44th overall and narrowly missed winning the first race today, Tuesday. He said, I have to say today was a fantastic day. I managed to get myself a second position in race 1 in what I say was a building southwest westerly, and just a fantastic day of racing and a couple of good battles with some good guys. I know everybody is just enjoying themselves. Tomorrow is going to be a tough day. Things have been quite mixed, and everybody is going to have a shot. Bravo, Zulu, Mr. Hogg in 44th place.
Yes.
Having a ball, as
Yes.
I'm sure are all 300 plus
Yes.
sailors, or most
Isn't
of them.
that wonderful?
Anyway,
It is super.
great stuff.
Yes.
And that's what our sport is about. That's what our sport has always been about, and it should continue to be about. And we should go easy on some of these fairly recent innovations, improvements, which aren't bearing out to be much in the way of
How
improvements
to push a button.
at all, especially how to push a button in the America's Cup with battery-powered boats. Give me a break. Gag me with a spoon, as John Coleus used to say. Julia, what happened on this day in history? 1579. You want a clue?
It was.
It would help. There's your first clue. I think I can back that lower third away. Yeah, I didn't mean to put the lower third on quite yet. There are some natives, some indigenous peoples.
Albion.
I think that's the first time we've ever had bare butts on this show, Julia. I hope you don't think poorly of me.
Oh, no. It makes it's very exciting.
New Albion, which is now here north of San Francisco. That's what it was called then. By whom?
Sir Francis Drake.
Exactly. Clark Chapin's got it. Sir Francis Drake lands near San Francisco. Exactly right. Well done. There is the area up here called Drake's Bay and Point Reyes National Seashore. Nobody's quite sure whether he landed there. Or he may have even landed inside of Bolinas. But he hove to and put his boat up on the beach and did some repair work, I believe, while he was here. But Sir Francis Drake, one of the great maritime navigators in history, also helped kickstart the English colonization of the Americas over here on the West Coast when he landed in what is now Northern California in 1579. Drake was undertaking his second circumnavigation of the earth when he landed on the Pacific coast of the Americas. He claimed the entire territory for the English crown, naming it
New Albion.
New Albion. He only stayed for a few weeks before departing, and while the English had no ability to maintain a colony over here on the America's Pacific coast, the claim was not followed up, but it served to legitimize the idea that England could and should colonize the continent. And of course, this was well before Jamestown, before the Pilgrims, and so on. Maybe not before the Vikings. Maybe the Vikings got here before 15.
Yes.
What was it, 79?
And the there were Europeans from with fishing fleets in the 1400s.
Well,
to the East Coast.
Yeah, and that's the Vikings, right?
They weren't Vikings.
What were they?
I don't know.
Okay. The exact location of Drake's Landing has been a matter of historical debate for centuries. Most of his original logs and maps were destroyed in a 17th century fire, and he often hid certain locations so the rival Spanish
absolutely
would not find them. The officially recognized location is Drake's Cove, as we mentioned a minute ago, up in Drake's Bay, somewhere in that cove, apparently, off Drake's Bay and Point Reyes, what is now Point Reyes National Seashore, Julia. So that's what happened today. Francis Drake lands in California in 1579, supposedly.
Yes. And when you say that to somebody, it's, oh, my dear, you don't mean 1579. You mean 1789.
No, 1579.
No.
No, that's when it happened. Okay, that's our show. Except now we get to the interesting stuff. I know a lot of you are on here waiting to hear what our proposal is for a new AC-style international event, and we'll give that to you in a second. Alan Long says, wow, I never knew that. St. Brendan. Drake, yeah, he was, Clark Chapin's got a link that we should probably look at. Don't forget the Irish, Clayton Embley is saying. Did the Irish land here in the U.S. someplace? They exported potatoes. I got a picture of the famous fake brass plaque. Yeah, Clark, whose son lives out here in the Bay Area, has probably been up there and checked that out, the historian that he is, Clark Chapin. And he's not only the historian of, with a broad, help me out, Julia, with a broad background.
Okay.
Now he's an engineer. I mean, both sides of his brain works, but he's sort of our show historian, too.
He is.
He keeps track of all our stats.
And I love the fact that he are an engineer.
He an engineer.
And he really
does. He are an engineer.
But anyway, he does very well with explaining complicated things.
Well, he's our show statistician, too.
Yes.
He keeps track of all our stats for us, and we deeply appreciate Clark and everybody else who contributes to the show, which a lot of people do. 2027, I having my doubts about whether this is going to happen. This is our AC38 Cup date. It will be in Naples if it happens, and if they don't, I'm not going to worry about the volcanoes because there's a lot of rumbling, but, there's a lot of rumbling here on the San Andreas and the Hayward Faults, and we're still here. And now, like the old, who was Don Rickles used to say, may God strike me down, and he'd go, oh! Well, I'm barefoot, Julia. I exposed my barefoot here.
This house is over 100 years old, and it's been through all the...
No, it didn't go through the 06 quake.
Yes, it did.
No,
it didn't.
No, it didn't, Julia.
It was 24.
It's 100 years old, 1924, so 102 years old, and the quake was in 06. But this one survived the 89 quake.
Yes.
In good shape, right?
Right.
Okay, Clark says he's a recovering engineer, but my degrees are in physics. I labored among the Philistines for 42 years. Well, the Cup, there's been negotiations going on. There was another big conference call yesterday among the challengers, and they are starting to make, they say, some progress with Mr. Dalton over a protocol. And whether they come to some agreement or not, I don't know. But the Royal Yacht Squadron, as I reported last time, has been put under pressure by the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron to put up or shut up, to, Shiza get off the pot as far as signing some kind of a protocol and coming to some agreement. And we'll see if they can get some sort of an agreement that might bring Alinghi back into the Cup in Naples in 2027, that might bring New York Yacht Club's American Magic back into the Cup. We'll see about the French, but I have my doubts. I still think this could well end up, not well, but it could end up being a two-team match between the defender, Emirates Team New Zealand, who should be defending this in Auckland, and the Italians, who, if they're the only team and they get to the match,
they'll win it.
And well, I don't know about that, Julia, but they're going to have a huge fan base.
Oh, yes.
And a huge amount of local support.
It'd be a great party, if nothing else.
Well, it would be a great party. The AC could be very interesting if the Challenger record stands their ground against Team New Zealand and Grant Dalton. Well, we'll see. So that's it for our America's Cup report, other than to say that once again, I have to say this, but this trustee, the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, by having delegated their authority and responsibility entirely to Grant Dalton and to the team, which is contrary to the deed of gift, contrary to New York law. They are Croutonic, and they are the worst trustee in the history, not the modern history, in the history of the Cup. Now, there's Margarita Marshall, and she's saying there are Margarita Nee Bottini, a long time friend, super journalist, photographer, dear friend. She's saying there continue to be rumors, and we reported those rumors and her thoughts about that, about several Italian teams. I will believe it when I see it, Margarita. I'll believe it when I see it. It is such an uphill climb to get an AC 75 on the water, Julia, and the huge expense and the ability in a leather boat. So, but no, I think they will mutually consent, Fog Machine, to do it in AC 75s because they got boats. I hope Prada gets millions of dollars of donations from the Italian population. Well, it'd be fun if they won it, Ed Worley.
It would.
It would be fun if they won it. Okay. Those guys are croutons. A lot of great members of that club. It's a fabulous club, beautiful facility. But the leadership, having delegated their trustee duties and responsibility, are croutonic beyond belief. Okay, Julia, time for our proposal.
Okay.
Okay. Do you know the name of that yacht? I should have had some kind of a big music, some introductory music here. For this.
Well, it's not America.
Or applause or something. No, it's not America. Good eye.
But
yeah, Grant Dalton is selling it. Margarita Marshall knows that he's selling his packages.
Yeah.
Meaning design packages. And he just, come on in and I'll just give you a design package, help you build the boat, and you can be a team for not very much money. Yeah, right. That's really in the spirit of the America's Cup. Is that Mayan plus? No, Fog Machine, who sailed us on Mayan, the boat here. Mark Holland knows, Clark Chapin knows, that is the Yacht Magic, the winner of AC1. AC0 being 1851, AC1 being New York Yacht Club's first defense in 1870, when, as you may recall, Julia, New York Yacht Club put their entire, not entire, but a good bit of their fleet, their squadron, out against the Challenger,
right,
saying what's good for the goose is good for the gander. In other words, what we had to face when we, New York Yacht Club, went to England in 1851 and had to race 13 boats from the Royal Yacht Squadron around the Isle of Wight. Well, we'll put our squadron, we'll put our fleet out there, and they'll have to race. And this was the boat of the New York Yacht Club's fleet that ultimately won. So they were, I don't know how many other boats. Mark Holland probably does know, because you remember he was on the show not too long ago and told us about his super cool America's Cup compendium.
Oh, yes.
that you can subscribe to or buy certain books. It's like a Encyclopedia Britannica of the America's Cup with, I don't know, 15, 16 different volumes. Cool stuff. Help him out. Mark Holland. Mark, put America's Cup Compendium.org or what, put your whatever it is in the comments, please.
Access it on the internet?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, Magic, winner of AC1, New York Yacht Club's 1870 defense. Why am I subscribing to that name for this event, which I am calling as a working title only, because whoever ends up hosting it, which I'll tell you in a moment, who I hope will host it and organize it, I would recommend it be called the Magic Cup. Why? Well, because it succeeds the America's Cup,
Which is
and the successor was the Magic Cup, not because New York Yacht Club's American Magic is the name of their team, not because CTB, the brilliant Claire Harrington's boat is called Magic, as we've discussed on this show, but because it's a beautiful yacht. This painting by marine painter artist Russ Kramer, the Magic Cup is what I think it should be called, and I think we should fix the America's Cup. A lot of the problems that were caused by the initial deed of gift, we've got 170 years of learnings now, so let's figure out how to do an event that is a proper America's Cup style match racing event, but make some subtle improvements. Well, the first is I strongly suggest we go back to this class. That is obviously a black and white photo from the 1980, well, maybe it's not obvious to a lot of you, but Ed Worley and others, Mark Holland will know that is from the 86 World Championships in Fremantle. There's a color photo of that same event. This is the World Championships of the 12-meter class, a warm-up regatta a year before the Challenger Selection Series started in October of 86. This was actually in the early part of 86, was it? I can't remember the date now. And then the match, which was in February of 87 off Fremantle in Western Australia. Mark Holland is saying there were actually 15 finished in that AC1. So there was the Challenger and there were 14 defenders. Do I have that right, Mark Holland? 9 did not finish or were disqualified. So they had even more boats than the 15, apparently, or the 14 that finished from the New York Yacht Club. Back to the 12-meter class, this event and then the subsequent America's Cup event in 86, 87 was the high point of the number of teams. There were 13 challengers, 4 defenders, a total of 17 teams at this event in in Fremantle, Western Australia. Royal Perth Yacht Club hosting. In the Doctor, that is the reliably windy conditions in the afternoon, hot, windy conditions off Australia's west coast. And it was a fabulous event. And it was still the high point of television coverage of the sport in the world, in the history of the world. So why, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The 12-meter class was fabulous. People remember it. Young people remember it. Old people remember it.
Yeah.
The J class was also from the 30s, was also one of the great classes, but it's a long time ago, and those boats were too big and too expensive.
Yes.
The International America's Cup class, which succeeded the 12-meter class, a little bit bigger, a little higher tech, too expensive. And they didn't have a good day racing pedigree afterwards. So you can forget about the J class, in my opinion, forget about the IACC class. There are still 12-meter boats sailing around in the world.
Indeed.
Not just in Newport, but in other ports of call, particularly in Europe, particularly in the Scandinavian countries. So why not stick with the 12-meter class? It provided great racing in heavy air and in light. There's a heavier race during the 87 Cup. Dennis Conner, one of the few times he and his Stars and Stripes team crossed behind Kookaburra, Ian Murray's team, Peter Gilmore's team. And 6 minutes later, Dennis was ahead. John Sangmeister reminds me he was a part of that team.
Mm-hmm.
The boats also performed well in light air. This is a 24 nautical mile race in Newport in 1983, the key moment when we lost the cup, when Australia 2 crossed ahead of Liberty.
Yeah.
It was a real nail biter. I was on the jury boat very close, right behind. I was the closest person, frankly, to this whole match, following it around on the bow of the jury boat. And we were the first boat in line. There is a few minutes, not even, a few moments later, when Australia 2 well and truly had passed ahead on port tack, the giveaway boat, and they jibed inside and rounded the port rounding at the leeward mark, and then all the way up to the top mark, there were something 30-some-odd tacks in a tacking duel extraordinaire. And yes, I don't know about the 24-mile course again, Ed Worley, but we're coming to that. The point is the 12-meter class has served our sport so well, as has the 8 and the 6. But the 6s are back in a big way at their worlds in Sewanaka Corinthian Yacht Club this fall or autumn. Dennis Connor's there sailing a boat. And the meter rule itself, the meter boat rule, which we'll get to in a sec, has served us so well. There was that crowning achievement by Australia 2 and the Australians when they crossed the finish line out in the open water off Newport. That is Liberty there, who lost, Dennis Connor's team losing 4-3 in that. Ed says there were over 40 tacks on that last leg, and here was the final tack by Australia 2 into the finish line. And for extra credit, who can name the name of the race committee boat and who was the race committee chairman, Julia? Can you? How about the Fozy? I'm sure that any number of the Fozy will know. The name of the boat was the race committee boat, still around. Black?
Magic?
No. Black, let's see, there it is, Ed Worley,
Black
first
Knight.
to get it. Steve Gruber got it. Black Knight, and who was the RC chairman? Kit Clayton got it. Claire Harrington's, there she is. See, now Claire's the only one who spelled it properly in all caps.
Yes.
The New York Yacht Club style, including my style here on Sailing Illustrated, we use all caps, as does Ed Worley, for the names of yachts. Because back in the day, when you had typewriters, you didn't have italics. It was difficult to underline. So New York Yacht Club, still to this day, in their book, I'll put it up here on camera one, uses all caps for yachts. It's the proper thing to do, Julia.
Yes, indeed.
I'm sure you would agree, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Huh?
Absolutely.
So, Black Knight, who was the race committee chairman? For extra credit, does anybody know?
Oh, 83.
W.H. Dyer Jones. Dyer Jones was the race committee chairman. And proving that the host yacht club can provide a fair and square race committee, at least in certain countries and at certain clubs. And it was a fair and square job by W.H. Dyer Jones running that America's Cup. And remember, the 12 served the Cup so well from 1958 until 1987. And we ought to go back to that. Back to the future. There's the symbol. As you all know, it's a simple 12 with a bar under it. Anybody that's got a shirt with a 12-meter symbol on it is a cool person in our beloved sport. The rule, which has changed 3 times, and the last time it changed, only 3 times, since the meter rule was conceived in what, 1900, tell me when, Mark, 1906. The third rating rule from 1956 for the 58 Cup is the length plus twice the difference between the skin girths. That's kind of the distance from the deck down to the water, and the chain girth. Let's don't get into the girths, but nonetheless, girth is good, right, Julia?
Yep. I know a lot about girth.
I'm talking about. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get. Plus the square root of the sail area minus the freeboard, the distance from the water up to the deck, has to be less, and then that all divided by 2.37 has to be less than or equal to 12 meters. So the boats are not 12 meters long. They're actually about 60 some odd feet long. But the formula comes out, and you do an analysis, a metric analysis of the formula, and it comes out in meters. So I'm proposing, yes, that we go back to the not Super 12s like we talked about 10 years ago.
What's the difference between Super 12s?
Well, Super 12s are a whole different class of boat. We had a new rule, and they were going to be one design and below the water and yada, yada. Well, I'm talking about just go back to 12s, build a new 12 meter, which can be designed, built in less than a year for less than, and campaign probably for order of magnitude $5 million. Let's carry on here. Associated with that formula is an extremely comprehensive set of rules, which can be classified into two main areas of what we call scantlings: safety and ensuring competitive racing. For example, the maximum total area of all cockpits is specified to minimize the chance of a boat being swamped in rougher seas. Structural requirements are specified to ensure that the strength is not sacrificed by the need to get weight down low down in the keel. Materials are specified, plus numerous other details concerning all aspects of the boat. The intention is to challenge designers, but ensure competitive racing. And yes, Ed Worley, I'm saying build new 12s. They're not expensive to build, relatively speaking. They're about the right size. They're big enough to look big, to be impressive, to have a good-sized crew, and manually powered crew, manually powered boats by the crew, but not so big that they're so super expensive like an 80 or a 90 footer would be, like a Maxi indeed is. One boat per team. You line them up on the shore of Newport. Remember that pier, that Perry's Wharf pier photo I showed you earlier in the show? One boat per team. And remember, too, that when the Cup left Newport in 1983, there was no such thing as New York Yacht Club's Harbor Court. That came along in 1988. Some would say because New York did get out of the Cup business for a few years. And 88, and this acquisition of Harbor Court is one of the best things that's happened to the sport in this country, if not in the world.
Yes.
Witness the 171st Regatta held there last weekend. So now you've got a superb facility, plus Sail Newport did not exist in 1983. So you got that facility over at Fort Adams. You got things like the new Perry Wharf. You got some shipyards in Newport that can handle any number of teams. And there would be a lot of teams because you could come now and compete. Yeah, Ted Ryman is saying we need cyclors.
Yes.
Margarita Marshall is saying when. Well, I get that. That's up to the teams. We'll come to that in a sec, Margarita. Everybody's they're all excited. They're getting ahead of me here. So let's think about the teams and what's happened in the past when you had 12s. This is Peter DeSabry's Victory 83 in their blue and gold livery. Fabulous team. They threw the best party. I think, Margarita, you were there. You would agree. The best party in the history, certainly the modern history, of the America's Cup, the British Ball in Newport, 1983. It would be a nationality rule so that everybody on the boat, every crew, and there would be 12. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Everyone would have to be a national, and I mean a passport holder, none of this residency stuff. Talking with Hamish, I have run this idea past a few people, like Hamish Ross, Ed Worley. I tried to call you last night. No answer, but a few others. But everybody on the boat has to be a passport-carrying national of the country, and if they have more than one passport, we'll have a rule like the Olympics where you have to claim one or the other and then go from there. 12s had 11 people in the crew, and now I'm proposing there'd be 12 people in the crew, including an owner's rep. There would be a person, presumably in the back end of the boat, who would be either the owner or the owner's rep or a sponsor or an advertiser or a yacht club representative who would be able to go along like we had the 18th man rule in the 18th person rule, but man or woman in the back end of the IACC boats. This would be 12 people for the 12-meter yachts. Now, these boats, again, are not 12 meters long. They're not 40 feet long. They're, approximately 60 feet long when you do the formula. So what else? Nationality. Again, everybody on the boat, on the crew, has to be a national of the country, of the club that the boat represents. And we will once again get scenes like this. and like this. Now, that's an IACC boat after the Kiwis won in 95, a bigger crew, but everybody worked in the physics sense of the word. Everybody worked. There was precious little stored energy. The only stored energy was by way of shock cords. You know, you could have little bungee cords on different things, and you had some battery power for the instruments, and maybe if you had an onboard computer. You could talk about whether you'd even allow onboard computers. I don't know. Probably in today's modern day racing, you would. Nationality rule, 11 sailors. The boats can be built, 11 sailors plus one non-sailing person who can't do anything to help crew the boat. They can only go along for the ride, sitting in the back end. The boats can be built by anybody, anywhere, using any material. This is the modern world. We got to fix any idea that the boat's got to be sourced in or built in the country of the club they represent. Forget that. Match racing, to be sure. Match racing, not fleet racing. You can have fleet races. You can have around the island race like they used to do back in the 80s in Newport and 70s for a fun thing if you don't want to risk your boat getting crashed into. A lot of people wouldn't sail in the races because they were trying to save the boat, protect the boat. Match racing, a Challenger Selection Series in August, maybe July and August, and then the match in September. The first defender will be the New York Yacht Club, the host club. They're going to put this thing up. They're going to get it going. They're the host club. They can have any number of boats competing in a defender selection series that they so decide. If they want to have one boat, one team, if they want to have one team with multiple boats, if they want to have multiple competing teams, it's up to each defender, in this case, the initial defender, New York Yacht Club, to decide who and how they're going to run their defense selection series. The challengers, meanwhile, organize their own series like it used to be done on, and keep the costs down, bring in their own race committee, get Ida Lewis Yacht Club to help if they want, or whomever, Connecticut Yacht Club, tell me who, get their own jury, run their own challenger selection series in Newport in July and August, or however long they decide they want to race. Who can race in the Challenger Selection Series? Any yacht club in the world, including American yacht clubs. This was a problem with the old deed of gift, with the old cup. So if New York Yacht Club is the defender, and if St. Francis Yacht Club and San Diego Yacht Club and Chicago Yacht Club and Seattle Yacht Club and Southern Yacht Club and tell me who want to pony up, get a 12, get a team, why not? And they sail in the Challenger Selection Series, Julia. Isn't that good?
It is good.
Huh?
Yes.
They sail in the Challenger Selection Series. And if St. Francis wins the Challenger Selection Series and goes head-to-head with New York, and St. Francis wins, then the next event will be, and the teams have got to get together and decide if they want to do this every year for the sake of their sponsors, if they want to do this every other year, every 3 years. There's too many conflicting views on how and when it should be done. New York Yacht Club has got to help sort that out with the teams. How is the organization run? Very simple. The challengers as a group nominate one person. The defenders as a group nominate one person. Those two people get together. They choose a third. Those two people choose a third. Those three are the trustees. They're the jury. They're not the jury, but they are the trustees. And they're the organizing committee. They can hire TV people. They can hire sponsorship people. Those three run the event. And if the defender changes, they nominate a new person, whoever the defender is, and the challengers of the group come together and name a person. Very simple, very clean, very inexpensive. If you want to do a combined television program for both the Challenger Series and the Defender Series, fine, you can do that. If you want to do separate series because the Challengers have some big TV outfit that wants to come in and cover the Challengers and the Defender wants to have somebody different cover the match, fine. Not the ideal way to run it, in my opinion, but again, these people will sort this all out. You will have in the first year 10 teams. Easy, right?
Yep.
You will have in the second year 20 teams because now, remember, the venue is not going to change. This is going to be Wimbledon. This is going to be Roland Garros. This is going to be the Australian Open in Melbourne year after year after year. This is going to be the Monaco F1 Grand Prix. This is going to be the Augusta Masters Golf Championship. like we have down in Georgia every year.
Mm-hmm.
The venue stays the same, therefore the boats stay roughly the same. You can take an old one and modify it and have a reasonably good chance of being competitive,
Mm-hmm.
maybe super competitive. You can build a new boat if you want. And another team can come in, buy an old boat, so now there's a market for the old boats
Mm-hmm.
because they know where they're going to sail. They know when they're going to sail. They can modify that boat and come to the party. You'll have teams from all over the world. Ed Worley says, Tom, sign me up. Well, I have spoken to a number of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Newport forever, Margarita Marshall. You'll have a cup summer. Tell me what, every summer or every other summer or every third summer. I'm not quite sure of the frequency. And it might even change. You might decide, the teams might all get together and say, you know what, we want to do this in 2028, even though it's an Olympic year. Or maybe we don't want to do it in 2028 because it's an Olympic year. We want to do it in 2029 for the first one. Then after that, we say we'd like to do it. That little 3-person committee, one nominated by the defender, one nominated by the challengers of the group, a third person they select, will decide. They'll decide. And New York Yacht Club will host it always in Newport. And if St. Francis Yacht Club wins the Challengers Selection Series and wins the event, it will be held in Newport. They'll be the defender. They'll get to pick the person that's on the organizing committee. Not in San Pedro, Ted Ryman. Fritz Mueller says this all makes way too much sense. Mm-hmm. And it will become the Wimbledon. I like Wimbledon the best as the best example of our sport. It will be an annual or a biannual event in boats that are affordable, but boats that are human powered, that boats that everyone relates to, mm-hmm. In boats that are raced in every yacht club around the world on a smaller version at least, or a larger version in some cases.
Yeah.
And now kids that are growing up in junior programs and then maybe get invited on to It's Okay, the boat, the 50-footer I sail on, or some other bigger boat, and end up learning how to, like all those Coast Guard kids. You know, there's a method to my madness in how I put these shows together. The Coast Guard kids that sailed Elon, right? Elon and won. They say, oh, you know what? I can go sail in the Magic Cup.
Yes.
I get out of the service, and that was so much fun. Newport, what a fabulous place. Uh-huh. I'll go sail in the Elon Cup. Elon Cup. Maybe we'll get Elon Musk to sponsor it. The Magic Cup, and I'll be the bowman or the bow chick. And I can handle that. It's something we all do. It's something everybody does. It's something everybody can relate to. Julia, even the Beach Street Yacht Club would have, we got some rich people in the Beach Street Yacht Club.
Yes.
And getting $5 million together with your prowess, and your airplane, and
yes.
There's some super yachts you could get a hold of too to be our mothership in Newport. Mm-hmm. I'm teasing a little bit, but not much. There are so many clubs that could put this together and come to Newport and challenge for the Magic Cup and would have a fighting chance of winning. Now, Sail GP is hard to beat for mass attention. Stingray, Dogzilla Monster, there would be much more attention because you got a lot more entries from a lot more countries. Everybody's going to watch this. Mm-hmm. Chris actually says, what about courses? How long? Let the teams figure that out. I suspect they're going to want to race windward lewards. And they're going to want to do 3 laps like we used to do in the Cup after we got away from the 24-mile triangle windward course. I think they'll go back to 3 windward lewards, I suspect, of, say 3-mile legs. And if it's a lighter day, they might go 2.5 miles. And if it's a heavier day, they might, I don't know. Let the teams figure that out. The important thing is to let the teams figure a lot of this stuff out.
And it could change from time to time.
And it could change. It could evolve, and it will evolve. Just like at Wimbledon, the rackets, for example, have gone from wood to aluminum to carbon.
Yeah.
And that's an example of the equipment. But, you might have ball boys and girls, and then you might not. And you might have line judges. Mm-hmm. And what are they called in tennis? The line judges. And now they're gone. They've got electronic eyes and so on. The teams will figure that. Reaching starts, no way, Chris Ferry. No way reaching starts. They'll start upwind, on the wind, on a square starting line, slightly favored probably to the pin end, as it used to be done. And it's so easy. And you could have a Masters 12 regatta as a warm-up. And do you have a requirement? People are asking, do you have a requirement for a woman on the boat? You have a requirement for a youth under age 25? Let the teams decide that. Part of their marketing program. I don't know. Maybe that's a good idea, maybe not. But I think the 12th person, the 12th man, 12th person, 12th crew is a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And Clark Chapin agrees probably windward leeward courses with marks to starboard like match racing events, but with one extra lap. Yeah, I think that's probably right, Clark. But again, the teams will decide this. And yes, we'll have umpires, which we never had back. Well, we had umpires from 1992. So the racing will be a lot more interesting. Not in the East Passage of Narragansett Bay, out on the old America's Cup course. Put a buoy in the water like the old America's Cup buoy used to be out there, around which the race committee can swing a course so everybody knows the wind and sea conditions for the design of their yacht.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not having to worry about, are we going to sail in Auckland here, or are we going to sail in Auckland over here? And on a windy day, is it going to be there? No, it's going to be out on Rhode Island Sound around the Magic Cup buoy, around which the race committee will swing a race course. So you know it's going to be flat water, breezy when you've got frontal passage and it's blowing out of the northwest. It's going to be lumpy and smoky when the breeze is out of the southwest, and fabulous. Too simple. Common sense. Like the Star class, like the Finn class, like the New York Yacht Club's 171st Regatta, where everybody says, God, it's fun to come here. And remember, as great as it was from 58 to 83, we did not have Harbor Court. We did not have umpiring. We did not have massive we finally in 83 had some television from a blimp that ABC ran, put a camera up there and ran it. Then we had 86, 87 in Frio with 17 teams, the high water mark of our sport. How does this affect the America's Cup? The America's Cup goes on, same as it is now. How does it affect Sail GP? Sail GP goes on, same as it is. But now you got people remember we talked in the last show about rugby shirts? Now you got people in rugby shirts and in shorts, okay, maybe in foul weather gear on days when it's blustery. And you got no helmets, they don't look like RoboCops. You don't have people popping up and down out of cockpits looking like whack-a-moles, look like you're playing whack-a-moles. And you don't have battery-operated boats. You got human power, manual power, powering the boats. Jody Shield, I'm in. I'll start a chug-a-lug challenge. So yeah, it's easy to do. And it just requires some leadership. I'm not the person to put this regatta on. I'm not saying we're going to do it. Julie and I aren't going to do it. Sailing Illustrated ain't going to do it. It requires somebody of the prestige and esteem of the New York Yacht Club, with a clubhouse like Harbor Court, who said this is a good idea, and they can modify this, amend it, and make it happen. And if they don't want to do it, I can think of several other clubs around the world who would. But Newport is particularly well situated and historically significant in the tradition. So enough said.
Yeah.
I'm suddenly inspired, Tom. Mark Holland is saying. Sailors doing sailing stuff, Clayton Embley is saying. The Wimbledon, or the Masters of our sport. Now, one person with whom I spoke last night, whom I respect a lot, hugely, said to me, you got to let teams that haven't been competing, you got to relax the nationality rules so that they can have, put a Kiwi or an Aussie or somebody on the boat to help them along. I said, no way. Let Peter Gilmore from Australia go coach the team of Japanese. Let Chris Dixon from New Zealand go coach the Japanese, but don't let him or them steer the boat. Make it an all-Japanese team. There are plenty of Japanese sailors who do offshore sailing in the Japan Ocean Racing Club, JORC. Is that what it's called? They got plenty of Japanese sailors. There are plenty of sailors in Hong Kong. There's plenty of sailors in Singapore. And even if they're British expats, that's okay as long as they got a Singaporean passport and that's who they're going to sail for, or a Hong Kong passport. There's no question that they've got the sailors in Switzerland to compete and win this thing. Spain, France, Germany, Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland. Tell me who? Greece. No, Ed Worley is saying he's agreeing. Yes, keep a strong nationality rule. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Has anyone checked my blood? My blood sugar is the same as it always is. No,
Pressure.
no non-nationals on the boat. And here is my final video
Mm-hmm.
of this segment, my only video on this segment, and we're going to rest my case about the nationality rule after this.
What do you like to eat after sailing?
寿司、焼肉、バーベキュー、
What is the most important thing during the race?
teamwork, communication, boat speed,
What do you need to improve?
English, boat speed.
What do you usually do when you're bored?
I usually watching Netflix. I like Korean drama. I listen to music. Now I'm playing golf.
What is the best spot?
Enoshima.
Enoshima. And that video, which is from the Star Sailors League, and they're producing videos like this. And look at the teams in the Star Sailors League that they've turned up.
Right.
But people want to come to Newport, number one. They want to race 12 meters. They want to have a regular event that quickly becomes the Magic Global Cup or the Magic Nations Cup or the Magic International Cup, the Masters Championship in the traditional sense of the word, like the Golf Masters, the top people in the sport, or like Wimbledon. I rest my case. No, Stingray, who would show up? The 12s are half a century old. They build new boats, build new 12s. They're easy to build. They're not expensive. I talked to Britt Ward at length last night about this. And yes, it's old technology, but so is the Star. So is the Fin. And look at all the people it attracts. Look at all the eyeball it attracts. So is tennis. It's old technology. So is golf. It's ancient technology.
Mm-hmm.
They use the word. Clark Chapin, the key item is that sailing talent is more widely distributed than the level of F1 technology that is necessary to compete in the America's Cup. Good point, Clark. Take away that hurdle and participation will increase a lot.
Yeah.
Margarita Marshall says, do the New York Yacht Club people agree? I don't know, Margarita. I don't know the answer to that, but I have, as you can imagine, spoken to several New York Yacht Club people whom I know well, and several, in fact, each of the three that I've spoken to are enthusiastic.
They have to be sad that they lost the patina of the America's Cup.
Well, for sure, and that's why they're back challenging and trying to win it back. They also have. New York Yacht Club has a cool event called the Invitational. Well, let's compare and contrast some of these other events. We're only an hour and 28 minutes into this show, so we can talk about this for a minute and get your ideas. This can be a FOSI-driven thing. Your ideas can help guide this Magic Cup a lot. But think about the competing events. Sail GP, fleet racing, and foilers. Totally short courses, 12-minute races, 3, 4, 5 people on the boat. Increasingly push-button sailing, different kettle of fish. The Invitational Cup, which New York Yacht Club now hosts beautifully in the IC-37s every other year, plus in the odd year, well, actually in the even year, but in the intervening year, they do a qualifying event.
Mm-hmm.
Great. That's fleet racing in one design boats. Great event. And it's also Corinthian. This event's wide open. Pros, AMs, whoever you want to bring, you bring pros and AMs. They just have to be nationals of the country of your club.
And it's club-based.
Of course, it's club-based. Yes, good point. Congressional Cup. This is a Congressional Cup on steroids. It puts a design element back into match racing. It gives people on the Congressional Cup, on the James Pleasant's match racing tour, an aspirational event. You know, let's go sail in the Congressional Cup, and maybe we get good enough to find a team that we can put together for the Magic Cup. It'll be magic. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't conflict with any of these things. How about the current America's Cup? That, as Clark Chapin so beautifully put it, that is F1 technology at a whole different level, at a whole different $100+ million budgets, call it $150 million budgets. Where the venue keeps moving all around depending upon who wins it, forget it. This stays in Newport always. And if New York says, hey, you know what, we don't want to do this for whatever reason, there are other clubs, I think, who would grab this and do it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
The nice thing about Newport, besides having the history and tradition and being the spiritual part of sailing, of yacht racing in this country, and, along with cows, probably the world, the other nice thing about Newport is the conditions, the sailing conditions. You've got moderate conditions, generally speaking. You get some light air days out of the southeast. You get some windy days and bumpy days out of the southwest. You get some flat water, northwesterly post-frontal stuff, as we talked about. Great stuff. Great place. Great venue. Go out and swing it around the America's Cup, the Magic Cup buoy, where the old America's Cup buoy used to be.
Fog Machine says the only thing he's not sure of is that match racing isn't as compelling viewing as 3 or more boats on the course.
Au contraire. That is our good friend here at St. Francis Yacht Club, Fog Machine, a.k.a. Lance Burke. Match racing, Witness 2026 and 2026, is so compelling because people can understand it. Why do you think Russell cuts it down from a fleet of 12 or 14 boats down to 3 for his grand winner-take-all final? Because you can understand it. Who's in the lead? Who's changing leads? Because you're only concentrating on 3 boats. Here, you're only concentrating on 2 boats, and these boats are going to be so competitive and so close because you're using the same rule in the same venue year after year, or every couple of years. And by the second or third cup, these racing is going to be so close, if not the first time out. So close. Alan Long says, no volcanoes. Yeah. Interesting idea. Okay, well, it is an idea. Ted Ryman thinks it should alternate between Newport and Cows. I thought about that, Ted. I thought about alternating it between Newport, Cows, San Diego, for example, San Francisco even, and then, say, Auckland and Frio. Here's the problem. Now you've just made it a super expensive event because you got to have horses for courses. And that's the big problem of the America's Cup. Now that you're moving the event to Naples, apparently, the boats in Barcelona are not necessarily going to be competitive in Naples because the wind and the sea conditions are different. Mm-hmm. The nice thing about Wimbledon, the nice thing about, sorry to repeat, about Augusta is that you get comfortable. You go rent the same house, the crew house. You stay there. You'll listen and learn in the race course. You get comfortable. You know which restaurants are your favorite. You develop, just like going to Cows Week. I mean, it is the same.
One thing is different, and that is that gone are the days when you say, I'm going to take 2 or 3 weeks off to do this, or I'm...
True, and it's going to be professionals. This is not going to be the summer of amateur racing in Newport like it used to be in the 70s or 60s even. This is going to be full paid professionals, and they're going to sail, for a week on and a week off. I don't know. The teams will decide that in Newport during the Challenger Selection Series. And then in September, they come back and do the match. Mm-hmm. Some teams will practice. Some teams will have a boat in SoCal and practice in the wintertime. Some teams will have, after 2 or 3 of these events, the French might have a boat in Lorient that they've built there, and they practice off the coast, and then they have their new boat in Newport and their old boat. Tell me what. Yep. Teams will figure it out. As few rules as possible.
Yes.
As few rules as possible. Okay, what other comments here? Clark Chapin, but with a large fleet, you might have a preliminary event with fleet racing, and the semis and finals could be match race. Clark, the problem with that is, again, you got to design the boat either to fleet race or match race. And you could have some fleet racing for exhibition purposes, but people are so worried about having their boat damaged in fleet racing, I doubt it. And I think you're just going to do match racing. It's going to be a match racing event like the good old America's Cup. Mark Holland, with the latest broadcast technology, the coverage would be compelling. Exactly right. I don't see any point in trying to race this in Newport's East Passage between the bridge and Castle Hill, for example, so that you can see it along the Fort Adams shore. Do some exhibition racing in there. Get the people there to watch the boats go out to the race course. They're going to watch it on TV anyway. Mm-hmm. That's how you see it. That's how you understand it. So you might as well go out and race it in a fair race course, not in up close and personal along the shore where It's crappy racing, frankly. And that's what happens in the Olympics with the medal racing. That's what happens pretty much across the board when you don't go out in open water and have great open water racing. Ted Ryman says, true. Yeah, you also got shipping costs. It's the other thing. A team for a low-budget team could be competitive by designing and building a boat. You can build it anywhere in the world, any designer you want. Get the design team, design it. If that designer wants to design for more than one team, great, fine, no problem. It's up to the teams to negotiate and referee that. But then the sailing team comes and sails the boat with nationals of their country, and they might sail the boat in Newport, train on and off during, tell me what, May, June, July, August, the trials start. And then hopefully they win and get into the match in September. They pack the boat up and don't think about it again till the following May. Maybe, and leave it in Newport. Or maybe not. Maybe they take it home. Maybe they have one at home anyway.
Ted Ryman says the Eamon Cup would be a good name.
No, it's not the Eamon Cup. And I know Gordon Smith was on last night on thinking about, don't let Stevie anywhere near the microphone, Rick Banner was saying. Now, there's Gordon. I'm trying to remember what happened the last time I suggested something like this. It was a while ago. I seem to remember it was somewhere near New York. It'll be great. People will keep coming and try to win it. Yeah, Gordon, this is a completely different concept. So you can try to throw cold water on it if you want, or you can think about how to make this good. One of the ideas Gordon had last night was that you go back and grab some trophy from maybe some other sport that's been around even longer than the America's Cup. To me, Gordon, is an idea, and yet there might be some old sailing trophy that's even older than the America's Cup, maybe, that was extant in 1851. I don't know. But I think the idea that this is a successor to the America's Cup, and you take the name of the boat here that succeeded after the Yacht America and won it in America in 1851, Magic won it in the first AC1 in 1870, call it the Magic Cup. The International Magic Cup, the Global Magic Cup. I don't think you need to do that. When people hear the concept, they're going to say, really? We're going to go back to Newport, sail 12s with a massive number of teams? Not the first year, maybe. Maybe you'll have 5, 6, 7 teams, 10 teams. But very quickly, it becomes affordable for a whole lot of countries to go race. And this, Commodores, ladies and gentlemen, will become the de facto world championship of our sport. Because the teams are national, because you got a lot of people involved doing the same thing, whether it's a lifestyle or a sport, tell me what you want to call it. But the same people from a given country sailing a boat the same way we're all used to doing it in our lives, our personal lives, our club lives, back at our home clubs in our home countries. It's relatable. It will quickly define the top sailing nation in the world, not which nation does well in the Olympics in various classes, not who wins Sail GP. Does anybody think New Zealand's the best sailing nation in the world because they keep winning the America's Cup? Maybe. Does anybody think France is the best sailing nation in the world because they win the Vendée Globe? It's specialty racing. This is historic, it's traditional, it's global. Magic Cup. I love how you wound up the Fosey, Tom. It's kept me awake. Pedro Foiling Sailors.
If you believe in magic.
If you believe in magic. I don't know what else to call it. Somebody will come up with a better name. Somebody will come up with some improvements in the format. But somebody had to put the concept out there to let people start to think about it. And
I love the painting.
I love you don't like the concept, sounds like.
Oh, I do.
St. Francis Yacht Club would jump all over this. If they could go to Newport, raise the money, sail a boat that has value after the event,
right?
They'll jump all over it, Julia.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I think so.
And so would Southern Yacht Club. So would a bunch of other clubs all around the world.
But it's inconvenient.
And what's inconvenient?
Having it 3,000 miles away.
Well, it's a hell of a lot more convenient than having it in Barcelona or in Naples.
I know.
And it's the other nice thing about, okay, that's a good point, though, in terms of convenience. The nice thing, Julia, about Newport is that it's halfway between Auckland and Europe. Not quite.
Mm-hmm.
But the East Coast, frankly, is so much better than San Francisco. because it's close to Europe. It's a 6-hour flight, 5-hour flight to London, 6-hour flight back. It's 7 or 8 hours. And it's the same from here to the East Coast. And you've got the Kiwis can go either way. And, it's a long distance for the Kiwis and the Aussies, the Antipodeans, a long way for the Brazilians. But you got to go someplace. That's never stopped people from going to Wimbledon. It's never stopped people from going to Augusta or the Australian Open. Okay, enough. Margarita Marshall, I just ask for a rule. No GD, no Grant Dalton in this game. Margarita Marshall, I would imagine nominating your husband, John, to be one of the people representing either the challengers or the defender on this committee of 3. Mm-hmm. It's so simple. And we write up a deed of gift, and yes, you have some rules, and we modernize, we fix all the things that we know, and they're not many, but we fix the things that we know are wrong with the current America's Cup that can't be fixed because of the deed of gift, and get on with the Magic Cup. Mm-hmm. The 12s could be returned to the sponsoring club so the yacht club members and juniors could enjoy. That's up to the team, Ed. The team and the club, they'll do all sorts of things that we can't even imagine. But you're absolutely right. If it's Newport Harbor Yacht Club, your old club, where you did the what was the name of his Beagle? That was the pejorative for the name of their boat was Eagle in the 80s. This was Newport Harbor Yacht Club's, and the boat was so slow it became known as Beagle. But nonetheless, yeah, you take the boat back and you got the club's 12-meter is there. Mm-hmm. They build a new one if they want, Eagle. They build a new one and the club has it and they put kids on it for junior training and they race it and, you get a rating and race it in PHRF. Woof, it really is. Okay, enough. Other stuff will spring up from this. I just can't even imagine. There'll be a Scandinavian championship of Finland and Norway and Sweden and Denmark, and tell me who. Mm-hmm. Germany maybe goes along. Because why not? They got these boats and everybody's training, vying to go get ready to race in Newport with their national team. Mm-hmm. Not expensive, but cool because they're big, cool boats. Constrained by a rule that has served us well since 1906.
Makes a lot of sense.
Okay, enough. Gets us to the last leg, Julia. We got 15 minutes left. The last leg, we're celebrating another set of monohulls that are also governed by a rule, a box rule known as the TP52 rule, and the 52 Super Series and the TP52 World Championship returns to Cascais in a couple weeks' time. This from Yacht Racing Life, another good media outlet. I commend it to you if you don't have a sub already. TP52 World Championship heads to Portugal in 2 weeks' time. There are few fiercer challenges in yachting than trying to win the Rolex TP52 World Championship. This annual regatta is the jewel in the crown of the TP52 Super Series and has been raced for 15 times since its inception in 2008 in Lanzarote.
That's terrific.
And another example of big monohulls with human power, crude, and great television, but it's fleet racing. Mm-hmm. Not match racing. We're talking about match racing, obviously, with the Magic Cup. So this is what's going on. Doug DeVos's U.S. team, American Magic Quantum Racing, has been victorious on 7 occasions, while Harm Mueller-Spears, German flag platoon, has won 3 times. The reigning champions are Tony Langley's British team on Gladiator. There's no nationality rule in this. We do cheer for the team that maybe is flying the flag, displaying the flag of the country that we maybe want to follow. And it's fleet racing. Again, it's a great event, but it's a different kettle of fish. Here is the promo for the Worlds in Cascais in 2 weeks' time.
The Rolex TP52 World Championship is probably one of the hardest events to win.
Okay, here we go, all the way up, racing now.
The margins are really small.
Is the jet staying up or coming down?
It really is some of the most pure sailing you'll ever do.
Keep pushing, guys.
You're fighting for every meter in that class.
Stand by in 3, 2, 1, turning.
The Rolex TP52 World Championship represents the highest echelon of Grand Prix monohull racing. committed owners and some of the planet's leading professional sailors engage in intense competition over 5 days and a maximum 10 races.
Consistency is the name of the game. It's important to learn from the mistakes that happen and continually try to improve the speed of the boat, the communication, the crew work.
Partnered by Rolex since 2017, this pinnacle of the 52 Super Series is hosted by the Club Naval de Cascais for a third time in 10 years, with Portugal's Atlantic coast offering diverse sailing conditions that place a premium on preparation and precision.
The TP52s are incredibly powerful boats. They have a large sail area. The boats are very light for their size, so they can do really high speeds.
A high-quality international fleet, including a number of former champions, will be seeking to capture the prestigious title won by British-flagged Gladiator last year. Such an achievement will require an exceptional blend of technical skill, seamless teamwork, and unyielding competitive spirit. Racing at the 2025 Rolex TP52 World Championship commences on July the 2nd.
Rolex, our favorite sponsor, TP52 Worlds, coming to Cascais in Portugal, just north of Lisbon. Fabulous club there. We've talked about it in a number of recent shows, haven't we, Julia? Mm-hmm. Clark Chabon, you forgot to mention an important aspect of the Magic Cup. The 12s have the 12s have symmetrical spinnakers and there are opportunities to attack from behind on the downwind legs. Yes, symmetrical spinnakers, spinnaker poles. Exactly right, Clark. And that's why the teams, I think, would probably want to sail a windward leeward, but they'll figure that out. 12 meters racing will look like that, and it looks great on TV. It is excruciatingly close racing for the teams, especially after you get into it. One or two events, it'll be fabulous. Julia, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, we have some goodies today from our FOSI and beyond. Thinking about Father's Day, I hope everybody had a great Father's Day last weekend. We had a nice Father's Day brunch here at the Beach Street Yacht Club.
We did.
On Sunday afternoon. Julia came down, and we had a couple friends here with us, and that was a great Father's Day. For those of you who were celebrating it, I hope you all had equally enjoyable times. Dad, why don't you have other hobbies like running or soccer? Because, son, when you're bad at running, it's embarrassing. When you're bad at sailing, you can call it bad luck or go drink beer.
And go drink beer.
And go drink beer. Or go drink beer. Yeah, you can do both. That's from Rick Bannerow, Julia.
He knows. He knows.
He sent that in. That was a good one. Mm-hmm. Now, here's a pretty good one, too. Actually, a couple people sent this. Son, if you can't say something nice, say something clever but devastating. I think that was from New Yorker magazine. Peter Taylor sent that along to us. Clever, very clever.
Yes.
Erudition here on this show from the FOSI. On second thought, maybe you should just give me a kind of a half smile. Mona Lisa's first day on the job. Now we know, Julia.
Now we do
Now we know why she had that kind of Shiza eating grin on her face, that famously subtle smile.
Yes.
Or whatever it was. For centuries, they've been trying to figure that out, right?
Well, that's why. One of the reasons it's famous.
Exactly. Greg, oh my God, the graphics department. Greg Phillips from Australia sent that in. Sorry, Greg. Get Phillips. We'll get him too. All right. Now, here's a really, really, what's the word? Intellectual. Watch this.
It's I before flee, except after C.
I before flee, except after C. They're doing hieroglyphics. It's clever, Julia. I before C, I before E, except after C in the English language. Mm-hmm. The grammarian that you are, I thought you would get this and think this was really clever. Pretty subtle. It's I before flee, except after C. He's admonishing the guy who's just doing the hieroglyphics. And he's saying, hey, you crouton, don't you know how we do our language?
Yeah.
That came from guess who? Gordon Smith.
Of course.
Of course. Okay, finally we wrap this up. We don't have a drinking one in this show, Julia. Well, we sort of that beer one. Sailing, where plan B is the same as plan A, but with more swearing. That also came from Peter.
Yeah. Oh, good. He has good ones.
He does. Thank you, Peter. Much appreciated for those. And Julia, that gets us to the finish line. And you like to say,
don't forget to like, follow, and share. And if you can, do all three.
Indeed. Comments are welcome, even in replay. We hope you will join us again on Tuesday when we do this every Tuesday and Friday. We'll do it Friday and then next Tuesday. And we appreciate very much those of you who do support us via Patreon. Please help us out. A few bucks a month. This is viewer-supported media. Keeps us on the air. Patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. Thanks very much for your support. And also thank you to those who gave us audio, video, and images for today's show, including Sharon Green, Daniel Forster, Stuart Shirley, we mentioned him, Hannah Lee Knoll, and a bunch of others. Dan Nerney, much appreciated, including and especially the Fozy, who send us various things for this show. Julia, any final thoughts?
No, not really. This time, it's always fascinating to see where we end up, and it was fun.
Bannero says this was a magical show.
Yes.
Mary Longpree, great show. Love your ideas. Well, we'll see if, we throw this up on the wall and see what sticks and see if anybody grabs hold of it and runs from here. But this is part of our raison d'etre here on the show, is to come up with ideas. If my dad hadn't pushed the 1080 rule, we wouldn't have the 7. Well, we probably would have sooner or later, but that got the 720 rule years later off the ground. And
which improved the sport.
And if it did, and we hadn't pushed the umpiring in 87, 88, who would have thought everybody uses umpiring today?
Yes.
All these years later. So you got to throw these things up and see if they stick or not. Thank you, everybody. Hope to see you on Friday, same time, same channel. In the meantime, go sailing. And if you do, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.